assistance. I tried to keep my voice gentle. I've taken on about all the cases I can handle for a while. Oh, this is not a law case. He flashed a particularly charming smile. Perhaps I should have mentioned that I came here today directly from the White House. This isn't my proposition. This is a request from the President. I was astonished. Roosevelt sent you here? To my home? The man himself. Chapter 13. The first time I ever laid eyes on Theodore Roosevelt, God, how he hated the nickname Teddy, I was surprised by how much he resembled the cartoons and caricatures with which the papers regularly mocked him. And now, on this fine summer day in the White House, I saw that the thick spectacles pinching his nose, the wide, solid waist, and the prominent potbelly had only become more pronounced since he took up residence on Pennsylvania Avenue. Roosevelt jumped up from his desk and charged across the room toward me before his assistant, Jackson Henson, could finish his introduction.
Captain Corbett, a pleasure to see you again. It's been too long.
The pleasure is entirely mine, Colonel, Mr. President.
No. I'll always prefer Colonel.
The President waved me over to a green silk sofa near his desk. I sat, trying to contain my excitement at being in the Oval Office, a room that was airy and beautifully appointed, but a good deal smaller than I would have imagined. A door to the left of the President's desk glided open. In came a tall Negro valet bearing a tea tray, which he placed on a side table. "Shall I pour, sir?"
"Thank you, Harold. I'll do my own pouring."
The valet left the room. Roosevelt went to a cabinet behind his desk and took out a crystal decanter.
"Except I'll be pouring this. What'll it be, Captain? Whiskey or wine? I'm having claret myself. I never touch spirituous liquors."
That is how I wound up sitting beside TR on the green sofa, sipping fine Kentucky bourbon from a china teacup embossed with the presidential seal. "I presume our old friend Nate Pryor has given you some idea why I wanted to see you," he said. I placed my cup on the saucer. He actually didn't say much, to be honest, only that it was to do with the South, some kind of mission. A problem with the colored people? Danger, perhaps?
"I've been doing a little checking on you, Ben. It just so happens that the place you were born and raised is the perfect place to send you. Assuming you agree to this assignment."
Mississippi?
"Specifically, your hometown, Eudora, isn't it?"
"Sir, I'm not sure I understand. Something urgent in Eudora?" He walked to his desk and returned with a blue leather portfolio stamped with the presidential seal in gold.
"You are aware that the crime of lynching has been increasing at an alarming rate in the South," he said.
"I've read newspaper stories."
"It's not enough that some people have managed to reverse every forward step the Negro race has managed since the war. Now they've taken to mob rule. They run about killing innocent people and stringing them up from the nearest tree."
The President placed the portfolio in my hand.
"These are papers I've been collecting on the situation, reports of the most horrible occurrences, some police records, things it's hard for a Christian man to credit, especially since the perpetrators of these crimes are men who claim to be Christians."
My first thought was that the President was exaggerating the problem. Northerners do that all the time. Of course, I had heard of lynchings, but I hadn't known of any in Mississippi since I was a boy.
"They hang men, they hang women. For God's sake, they even hang young children," Roosevelt said. "They do the most unspeakable things to their bodies, Ben."
I didn't say a word. How could I? He was talking about my hometown.
"I've tried discussing the matter with several Southern senators. To a man, they claim it's a work of outsiders, and a fringe element of white reprobates. But I know damn well it's the Klan, and in some of these towns, that includes just about every respectable white man. But, Colonel, I said, the Klan was outlawed 35 years ago. Yes, and apparently it's stronger than ever now. That's why you're here, Captain.
Chapter 14. I was glad when Roosevelt reached for the decanter again. This talk of the sins of my fellow Southerners had me upset, even a little angry. Colonel, I haven't spent much time down home since I finished law school, I said cautiously. But I'd be surprised if there's a problem in Eudora. Folks there generally treat the Negroes well. When he spoke, his voice was gentle.
Open your eyes, Ben. Since July, there have been 2 men and a 15-year-old boy allegedly lynched within a few miles of your hometown. It's on the way to becoming a goddamn epidemic, and
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to interrupt. You said allegedly?
Excellent! You're paying attention.
He thwacked my knee with the portfolio.
In this file, you'll see letter after letter, report after report from congressmen, judges, mayors, governors. Nearly everyone tells me the lynching reports are greatly exaggerated. There are no lynchings in their towns or districts. The Negro is living in freedom and comfort, and the white Southerner is his boon friend and ally.
I nodded. I didn't want to admit that had I been asked, that would have been very much like my own estimate of the situation.
But that is not the story I'm hearing from certain men of conscience, he said. I need to know the truth. I'm glad you don't automatically believe what I'm telling you, Ben. I want a man with an open mind, an honest and skeptical man like yourself who can see all sides of the question. I want you to go down there and investigate and get to the bottom of this.
But, sir, what is it you want me to find out? Exactly what?
Answer these questions for me, he said. Are lynchings as common a fact of life as I think they are? Is the Ku Klux Klan alive and thriving down there? And if so, who is behind the outrageous resurgence? What in hell is the truth? The absolute truth? And what can a president do to stop these awful things from happening?
He barked these questions at me in the same high, sharp voice I recalled from the parade ground in Havana. His face was flushed red, full of righteous anger and determination. Then softly he asked, "Will you do it for me and for this country, Ben?" I did not hesitate. How could I? Of course. I am at your service. I'll do what you ask.
Bully! When can you go?
Well, sir, I do have a trial beginning next week in the circuit court, I said.
Leave the judge's name with Mr. Henson. We'll take care of it. I want you in Mississippi as soon as possible.
He clapped his hand on my shoulder as he walked me to the door. From the breast pocket of his jacket, he removed a folded scrap of paper, which he handed to me.
This is the name of a man who will assist you down there. I believe he'll be able to open your eyes to the way your good people of Eudora have been treating their colored citizens.
Yes, sir. I tucked it away.
One more thing.
Sir?
I must have secrecy. A cover story has been arranged for you. You're in Mississippi to interview possible federal judges. If your real mission is exposed, I will deny that I had anything to do with your trip. And Ben, this could be dangerous for you. The Klan murders people, clearly.
In the outer office, I gave the judge's name to Mr. Henson, then walked down the steps of the north portico to the curving driveway. To be honest, I hoped some friend or acquaintance might happen along and witness my emergence from that famous house, but no such luck. I stepped out onto Pennsylvania Avenue and turned toward my office. I would have to work late getting everything in order. It seemed I might be gone for a while. I had just passed the entrance to Willard's Hotel when I remembered the slip of paper the president had given me. I pulled it out and took a step back to read it in the haze of gaslight from the hotel lobby. Written in the president's own bold, precise hand were 4 words: Abraham Cross, Eudora Quarters. I thought I knew everybody in Eudora, but I'd never heard of Abraham Cross. The Quarters was the Negro section of town. This was the man who was going to teach me about Southerners and lynching. The fact was, I had not been completely honest with Roosevelt. Had he asked me, I would have told him the truth. I already knew more than I cared to know about the horror of lynching. I had seen one. Chapter 15. The summer we both turned 12, my best friend, Jacob Gill, and I made it a practice to slip out of our houses after supper and meet at the vacant lot behind the First Bank of Eudora. Once out of the sight of grown-ups, we proceeded to commit the cardinal and rather breathtaking sin of smoking cigarettes. We'd blow perfect smoke rings into the hot night air and talk about everything from the new shortstop just sent down from the Jackson Senators to play with the Hattiesburg Tar Heels to the unmistakable breasts budding on a lovely and mysterious 8th grader named Cora Sinclair. More than anything, I think, we liked the ritual of smoking, swiping the tobacco from Jacob's father's humidor, bribing old man Sanders at the general store to sell us a pack of bugler papers without a word to our mothers, tapping out just the right amount of tobacco, licking the gummed edge of the paper, firing the match. We considered ourselves men, not boys, and there was nothing like a good after-dinner smoke to consecrate the feeling. Then came a Monday night, early August, the last night we ever smoked together. I will tell you how the nightmare began, at least how I remember it. Jacob and I were a little lightheaded from smoking 3 cigarettes in quick succession. We heard noises on Commerce Street and walked down the alley beside the bank to see what was stirring. The first thing we saw was a group of men coming out of the basement of the First Methodist Church. I immediately recognized Leon Reynolds, the dirty man who did the sweeping and manure hauling in front of the stores around the courthouse square. He had a hard job, a big belly, and a sour mash whiskey attitude. Across Commerce Street, on the sidewalk in front of Miss Ida Simmons's sewing and notions shop, we saw 3 colored teenagers standing and shooting the breeze. Lounging against the wall of Miss Ida's, they were facing the wrong way to see that there were white men bearing down on them. I recognized the tallest boy as George Pearson, whose mother sometimes did washing and ironing for our neighbors, the Harrises. Beside him was his brother Lanky. I didn't recognize the third boy. If Jacob and I could hear their conversation this plainly, so could the men walking down the sidewalk toward them. George Pearson was doing most of the talking. "Shoot, Lank, they couldn't do a damn thing round here without us," he said. "Let 'em try to get along without colored folks. Who'd curry the hosses and pitch their hay? Who'd they get to cut cane and pick cotton?" Jacob looked at me. I looked back at him. We knew black boys were not supposed to talk this way. The white men walked right past us and stepped down into the street. I don't think they even registered our presence. When they heard what George was saying, they started walking faster, and then they ran. They were almost upon the 3 boys when one of the men boomed, "Hell, George, you one smart little nigger to figure all that out by yourself." Chapter 16. George Pearson turned and I saw nothing but the whites of his eyes. It was stupid of him to be talking like that in the open on Commerce Street, but he quickly demonstrated that he was smart enough to run. Jacob and I watched him leap the horse trough in one bound and take off sprinting through the skinny alley beside the church. Leon Reynolds and his pals gave chase,